Hi there, welcome back to the Art of Business English, where we help you get the language skills you need to succeed in any business speaking environment. And today I'm joined with Brenden from MasterTalk. Hi Brenden, how are you, buddy?
Very good, Andrew. How about yourself, man?
Good. Nice day here in Spain, sunny Spain. You're coming in from Montreal, no?
That's true. No, the weather here is great as well. Maybe not as great as Spain, but we try our best.
Yeah, you're way up north. Actually, I actually met my wife in Canada. I lived out in Vancouver for a year. Lovely
Very
part of the
cool.
world. Yeah, very lovely part of the world. Didn't make it over to Montreal though, so I'm sorry for that. But yeah. Anyway, welcome to the Art of Business English. And today, Brenden is the host of a YouTube channel called MasterTalk, and he's a presentation coach, communication coach. And today he's going to be sharing with us basically some tips on how you can improve, or some of the things that you need to consider when you are presenting in a different language, which for most people, most of my listeners here on the Art of Business English, that is something they have to do on a regular basis. So before we get started, Brennan, I just wanted to give my listeners a bit of context, a little bit about who you are, what inspired you to start Master Talk, and really what got you into this wonderful world of presenting. And maybe, I don't know if you had any challenges that you had to overcome, or maybe you were terrified of presenting like 99% of the population. So how did you get your start? What inspired you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm definitely in that 99% of people, Andrew, scared of public speaking. So for me, the
Mm-hmm.
journey started when I was 5 years old. My
Mm-hmm.
parents looked at me and they said, "Hey, you live in Montreal, buddy. So you need to learn French." So they threw me into a French education system. I'm very glad they did that. So now
Mm.
I speak those languages. But the
Mm.
challenge, as you mentioned, when you speak in a foreign language, which was foreign to me anyways,
Mm.
is when I was in first grade or second grade, I would stand up, look at the audience, and go, bonjour, and I
Mm.
would have no clue what I'm saying. So not
Yeah.
only was I uncomfortable at presentations,
Yeah.
but I had the added difficulty of presenting in a language I didn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
that was my
terrible.
really, yeah, it was terrible. It was basically my reality for most of my life. And then when I went to
Yeah.
university, I
Mm-hmm.
went to business school,
Mm-hmm.
I learned about these things called case competitions. So
Mm-hmm.
think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other
Mm.
guys my age were playing footy or cricket or rugby. I, on the other hand, wasn't too attuned to those sports. What I did instead was I used the same competitive spirit, but I applied it to presentations, to communication. And I
Mm-hmm.
did that competitively. So I know this sounds
Wow.
weird, especially since you're from Australia, but universities like the UNSW and the University of Melbourne
Mm.
spend $10,000 a year flying out to a
Mm.
different country in a different city like Montreal just to present PowerPoint slides. Oh, that's
Mm.
crazy. But
Yeah.
that was my life. And then after that, I graduated. I got a great job at IBM, and then I kind of just asked myself, what do I do with my life now? And I noticed that all the communication information was pretty bad on YouTube, so I just started making videos, and here we are today.
Oh, sounds good. Yep, communication is a challenge for most people. But I think I classify basically this like communication in general as probably the most important business skill, which people are like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's like the foundation of everything. Every interaction we have is like based on communicating something, like an idea or a message, convincing someone to buy something or adopt your idea or a process or whatever. So effective communication can save you thousands or make you millions. When I say save money, I mean ineffective communication leads to, repeating meetings, sending 3 or 4 emails instead of one, lost customers, lost business. So yeah, communicating is essential, and that's an essential skill. And then that's what a little bit what we're here today for, not to talk to people about how they can improve presenting, because presenting is one of the fundamental skills in business. I mean, we use it every week now, even if it's just in a team meeting. Essentially, you are presenting, no? Even if you're just in front of your team, maybe you've got to stand up and just give a quick demonstration on something, or give some feedback or a quick report. an update on something. But it's a presentation essentially, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like you mentioned so well, Andrew, everything that you do is communication. It's the business meetings that you have, it's the presentations that you give, it's the tough conversations you have with your spouse or your husband or your kids. It's everything that you do. So the
Yep.
better that you get at presentations, or rather communication, it helps you not just with business, but also in life, I found.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you're an effective communicator and an effective listener, you are going to be a better parent, a better husband, or a better wife. And a lot of problems can be overcome through effective communication. But how would you? I mean, generally, do you think people are good communicators, bad communicators, or just average?
Most people, you're asking?
Yeah, most people in general. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess from culture to culture, there's probably some variations. But how would you rate people in general?
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit too self-critical, but
Me too.
I would say the average is probably lower than I would like it to be. And I
Yeah.
think the reason is because those free communication tools don't exist. Podcasts like yours or YouTube channels like mine just didn't exist 15 years ago. It just wasn't a thing, at least
Yeah.
in the free category anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we're starting to democratize that a bit more. We're starting to make that more accessible to people. But I think the other thing that's just missing is people don't try and build a value system for who they are and who they want to communicate to. So let's say, for example, what I like about this conversation, we're both purpose-driven people, we're like helping other people. It's
Yeah.
great. We get to connect. Yeah, we get to
Yeah.
connect with each other
Yeah. Yeah. It's
in a
good.
fun way. But
Yeah.
most people don't do that.
No, they're
Right?
terrified. Oh,
Right.
I'm
They're
scared.
like, whoa, this
Yeah.
guy's from Spain, but he's also from Australia, and he
Yeah.
met his wife in Canada. This is all bizarre, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the thing is most people don't seek out those people. So they're always communicating with boring people. Like people at work. No offense to people at work, but just in general.
Yeah,
They're not.
yes, the same environment, now. The same people around you. I mean, I guess that's a little bit one of the reasons why the world is, particularly America now, and the world has become much more polarized because through, social media, search engines, your traffic or the traffic that you're generating is being driven. They're driving you towards people who have a similar belief system, or it's easy to find other people who think and believe what you think. So that's in some ways creating this polarization between like the left and the right, if you want to keep it really simple like that. But yeah, communication is essential. And I think people haven't really had much training in effective communication because we are destined to, I guess, learn from the mistakes of our parents as well. And unless you're aware of how the things that you do that are ineffective in communicating, I mean, you're going to just, you're destined to repeat those mistakes. And at school, did you have, I mean, maybe at university, yes, but at school, were you ever taught, like, was there a class on communication? Like, we're doing maths at 6 or at 5, or no, that's a bit, sorry, in Spain we have late schedules. We got maths at 10 and then we have, effective communication skills at 11. I was never taught that. Were you?
So yeah, I did have communication classes, but let's just say they weren't ideal. So let's say, again, example. If you go into a communication class and the teacher looks at it and he says, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you don't do this, you get punished. Well, you're not making a difference here because you still perceive public speaking as a chore. Whereas let's say when I coach, and people can use this, is I make the people I teach pick their own topics. What do you want to speak about? What do you like to talk about? Is it about cupcakes or anything? And then we build that confidence up from that base instead of them present a corporate presentation at work. We make them present something more inspiring. So you take those skills and then you apply them back into work.
Yeah, sounds good. That's positive. Yeah, I generally do that with students as well when it comes to just learning English, because as you know, I'm an English teacher. I say to them, look, you need to improve your reading skills. It's really important, and even your listening skills. But reading is really important for, subconsciously, like taking in structure, vocabulary. And I say, like, just read a blog or something that you like, because it's much easier to start with something that you're actually interested in, as opposed to, me forcing you to read this topic or this article I found it in the newspaper or something. So yeah, definitely, I would definitely agree with that. So what about, let's move on to, the topic of today. We could probably go on and talk about communication for hours, but let's refocus back onto what are your tips then? So what would you suggest non-native English speakers do to improve their presentation skills when they need to present in another language, in this case English?
Absolutely. So the trick is actually a lot simpler than people think. The first thing we need to realize is the difference between speaking in a first language and a second one has nothing to do with intelligence. A lot of people, first language is Spanish, first language is French or Hindi or Mandarin. They kind of just say, this English thing is hard. I don't really know how to speak it. They get discouraged. They say bad things about themselves. That's not the
Yeah.
thing. Because I understand those struggles, because I did the reverse. First language is English, and now I keynote in French. But before keynote, forget presentations, let alone keynote.
Yeah.
The difference is vocabulary. In your first language, you understand the cultural context of that language. So I'm assuming your first language is either Spanish or Portuguese, right?
No,
you're Australian.
I'm Australian. Yeah, my first language is
Right.
Australian, so yeah, I've gone the other way as well.
it's
I've
English,
learned
yeah.
learned Spanish and I've learned Catalan later in life.
Right. Exactly. But so let's say a lot of people in Spain, it's the opposite, right? Their first language is Spanish or Catalan, and their second language is English. So what you want to do is the first step is you want to write your speech in your first language because you understand the cultural context of that language in the same way that you understand Australian culture. And now, since you live in Spain, you understand the culture of that city, of that country, and then you can apply the language a lot better, and it's a lot easier for you to learn it. So you do it in your first language. You write it out. So let's say your first language is Spanish. And then what you want to do is you want to translate that script into the language you need to speak it in. So let's use myself as an example. First language is English. Second language is French. I write the speech in English. Then I translate it into French. And then the third thing I do is I do what I call a vocabulary test. So then I present this presentation that I've translated to people whose first language is that language. So I know I'm saying a lot of words, but to keep it simple here, let's say my first language is English and I need to speak it in French. I write it in English, I translate it in French, and I get French native speakers to watch my presentation, and they go, Brenden, this word actually doesn't translate that well in this language. Use this instead. Use this instead. And if you keep doing that with the same presentation 5 or 10 times, you'll be a lot more comfortable in that language.
Okay, good. So, I mean, do you recommend then, because I've always been someone who generally would translate the main idea. I've thought that a script can be a bit dangerous in some ways because it could make you sound a bit robot talk, especially if you have memorized it. So, but do you think there's a benefit to having the full script or to being translated, or do you think it's better to mainly stick to the main ideas? I mean, this is obviously if you're speaking in your native language, it's much easier just to have some key ideas because you don't need to have this sensitivity between using the correct vocabulary in the correct context. So you're suggesting that it's better to have the full script because of the context of delivering a presentation in another language?
That's a great question, Andrew. So the way that we can think about this, because they're both right, is doing the script is especially important if you're a beginner getting started. So if you're someone who's like, I need to present English for the second time or I'm not seeing any improvement, I think writing the script is definitely ideal. But what you said is absolutely correct. As you get better over time, you don't need the training wheels anymore. You take them off and you go, well, I'm pretty comfortable in English now, so I'm just going to write down the main points in my native tongue, language, and then translate that to English, and I'm ready to go. So the idea is it's a process. So if you think about me, I would say the first 3 years of my education, so I was pretty young when I figured this out somehow magically. I would do that. I don't know how that happened. That's a whole other thing. I was just a 7-year-old kid. I was like, hey, I should write this thing in my first language, translate. I don't know what happened there. But anyways, so yeah, the first couple years I was always doing that because I just didn't know French. But now if you ask me that, I don't write my scripts and translate them in English because I'm very comfortable keynoting in French now. Unless the presentation's really important, then I script it, but for the most part, I don't. So you're right. It's both. It's a process, and one leads to the other.
Yeah, I think you've raised a good point. If you are starting out, there's no harm in having a script. You when you and another tip I would add is that when you are presenting it to people to check, so before, maybe a few days before you're actually giving the presentation, when you're presenting it to native people to help get feedback from them about the vocabulary, you could also be practicing it to not sound like a robot. So to not sound like you're reading the script, because that's also important. I mean, it's nice to have a something to fall back on. So your script is really important. It'll give you that confidence, and it will help you feel like very comfortable in terms of like, I'm not going to make any mistakes and I'm following a script. But you also need to polish a little bit the sound of your voice as opposed to reading it or naturally delivering it. But again, baby steps, no? Baby steps. One step at a time, I guess, is important. So you recommend the confidence, building confidence is key, yeah?
Absolutely. And what this does, the script exercise, is it gets you really comfortable in your own language and the one you need to speak it in. And you start to go, wow, I'm pretty good at this English thing. And that is how you slowly build confidence over time. That's one part of it, which is preparation. The other part that not many people talk about is this idea of having a belief system. If you know exactly why you're presenting something, what the outcome of that presentation is, and how it benefits the people in the room, it's a lot easier for you to show up with energy, to show up with positivity, even if you don't have all the words in the right place. What I always tell people who present in a second language, because I do it, even if you make a couple of mistakes with your accent, nobody will care as long as you don't care.
I
Right?
completely agree. Yeah.
So if you spend time going, oh, I didn't get the word right, then the audience will go, oh, I guess he didn't get the word right.
Yeah.
But if you're presenting like, oh, I messed this up, but I'm still presenting, people don't mind. People don't care.
They don't. They give you a lot of flexibility and leeway, and that's been something that I always tell my students the same. I make mistakes with my Spanish all the time, and that's even after like 14 years of living here. I mean, it's very difficult to be perfect all the time, and it sort of just adds to the character of the speaker as well. You are non-native, so you're going to have an accent, which is going to differentiate you from maybe all the other native speakers in the room, which will make you more memorable, hopefully. And if you have that energy, like you said, behind it, and going back to what you said about belief, I think you've really hit on a key point there. A lot of people fail to. You said two things. You said a belief system and the value and what it is that you want what the people in the audience want. And I think that's a key that most people fail to identify or think about when they're in the planning stage of their presentation. They generally attack a presentation as like clinically, like I need to deliver this information. Like, this is what I need to do. Whereas you need to have this belief and put yourself in the position of the audience. Like it should be what they actually get out of the presentation as opposed to what you just feel you need to deliver. So yeah, that's super important and often overlooked, I think. Would you say that? Do you find that most people don't effectively plan at the beginning? From your experience?
Absolutely. And I'll give you a quick tip that people can use to prepare better. Because the reason most people prepare is that they don't prepare the right way. They have like 2 or 3 days for a presentation. They go, oh man, I got to figure this out. And then it's presentation day. And they go, okay. And they can't really get it done. So here's a good way of thinking about it. Public speaking in many ways is like a jigsaw puzzle. You know those 1,000 pieces of puzzles, you put together? So if I asked you, Andrew, if you were working on one with your family or somebody in the house, which pieces would you start with first and why?
Well, you'd obviously start with the edges, no? Because it's easier. Yeah.
Exactly. So now the question we need to ask ourselves, Andrew, is why don't we do that in public speaking? We have a presentation in 2 days. So what do? We shove a bunch of content. In other words, we start with the middle, not the edges. And then we get to the last slide in our business meetings, in our business boardrooms, or really anything. And we go, yeah, so thanks. And that's how we end our presentation.
Thank you for listening to me. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So the key to public speaking, whether you're presenting in a fifth language or a first language, is what I call the puzzle method. Start with the edges first. Present your introduction 50 to 100 times. It won't take you that long. It's a minute each. It's like an hour or two. Do the same thing with the conclusion, because what's a great movie with a terrible ending? A terrible movie. So do the same thing 50 to 100 times. You've spent 2 to 3 hours already practicing, and you've practiced your introduction and given the best one you've ever given in your life. Same thing with your conclusion. And then you use that confidence boost to say, hey, I'm really good at speaking. Let me try the middle now. And that's how you conquer the public speaking puzzle.
Nice. Yeah, and I think what people also do is they rush into it. The first thing to do is open PowerPoint, which is also a no-no. Like, you should actually, outline the presentation and the main ideas first, and go way back and start thinking about what it is that you want people to come away from. So starting with the end in mind is also very important. And like putting all the content into PowerPoint should be one of the last things that you do. So yeah, going through all of these stages, like really, having a punchy, powerful introduction and, uplifting or call to action conclusion, depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve. Yeah, it's super important. So yeah, that's a good tip with the puzzle. And don't open PowerPoint first, because that's not the way to start a presentation. That is like you said, the PowerPoint is the middle. That's starting a puzzle with the pieces from the middle, right? Okay, so what other tips have we got for presenting in another language to help you boost confidence and come out looking awesome?
Right. So I would say one last one we could talk about is the random word exercise. So this is a great for mindset. Essentially what you do is you pick random objects in your house and you just present about them. So how about I just demonstrate this really quick, Andrew? Why don't you just give me a random word?
Coffee table.
Coffee table. Awesome.
Yeah.
So now what I need to do with this word is I need to create a presentation out of thin air. So here I go. It was a Sunday morning and I went up upstairs to get my breakfast. And you know those mornings where you just enjoy the scenery, you enjoy the sun coming up, the energy, the light that shines on your face. And as I start eating my scrambled eggs, my freshly squeezed cup of orange juice, much like most Americans or Canadians, our breakfast always ends with a cup of coffee. Coffee, and more specifically, the table in which it sits on, represents not just a beverage, but a moment. A moment that we share, not just with ourselves, but with the people that we love. Whether it's biscuits on a coffee table, board games, puzzles, we enjoy that table so much, not for the object that it is, but for the moments it allows us to share, which is exactly why this presentation, I'm going to be talking about the history of coffee tables, why they matter a lot more than you would think, and the moments that you'll get to share with them as well. So notice how random that was. So the point that I'm driving is three things.
Imagination, very imaginative. Yeah.
Thank you. You tried.
I can see the coffee table in my mind and and this freshly squeezed orange juice. But that's good. That's storytelling. So yeah, sorry. Back to you.
No. It's totally fine. I appreciate it. People are always like, "Whoa, this guy's like some other thing. He's like buying coffee tables left and right." But
yeah. I'm a coffee table salesman.
Right. Yeah. I should have done. I picked the wrong career, man. But the point is, there's three things I want to emphasize to people listening, because I'm sure a lot of you are probably afraid, like, whoa, I got to do it like that. No. One, do not compare yourself to me. I've done this exercise 2,000 times, and I'm not exaggerating the number. It doesn't take that long to do. It's a minute each, right? Two, I'm only asking for 5 minutes of your day, not 5 hours, not 5 days of your day, but rather 5 minutes. You pick 5 words, could be wife, could be tree, you could be doorknob, doesn't matter. You make minute presentations. Third thing is understanding why the exercise matters. Well, Brenden, I'm a business executive at a company. Why are you making me present nail polish for a minute? Because of the mindset piece. If you can talk about nail polish, tissue papers, coffee tables for a minute, imagine what you can do with the presentation you actually know something about. That presentation will suddenly shift from being a scary thing to do to being a joke.
Cool. nice advice. And I love the storytelling there as well, which is a whole nother aspect of presenting. I'm sure people who are listening will appreciate that. You know, you can actually see in your mind the coffee table, the view, the sun coming up. That's really important. That's very powerful. So great. So those are your tips then, yeah?
I got a bunch more, but we probably don't have time to go through all of them.
Well, what's your top tip? I'm sure people would appreciate it. I've got you here now, so why not? Dive in with one more. Why not?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. What else can I share with native speakers? Oh, yeah, there's a big one. This is what I call the vocabulary check. Actually, let me phrase this differently. So, one of the best ways that I actually learned how to pronounce, that not many people know about, is I can actually karaoke in 8 different languages. So, I speak three: English,
Mm.
French, and Tamil fluently, but
Mm-hmm.
I can karaoke in 8. So I can also sing songs in Korean, Mandarin, Japanese, Hindi, and Spanish, even if I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to speak the languages.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably listening to me saying, once again, I'm a business executive. Why does this make any sense at all?
Mm.
The reason is because what I've learned in my life from my personal experience is the most effective way to learn pronunciation is actually singing songs or
Mm.
versus speaking the language, obviously, but that's a
Mm.
different thing. But
Mm.
if you're at home and you're alone, the best is actually to sing. Let me explain why. You don't have to be good at it. The reason is because you can't wake up every day and go, I like apples, I like orange. You'll get bored after 3 days. You just won't be able to do it. It's just not fun without a coach or something.
Mm.
So by picking songs in languages you don't understand, it forces you to pronounce the words well, which makes your pronunciation in your native languages, the ones you actually know how to speak, a lot better. So that would
Mm.
be my big tip that not many people think about.
Okay, so listening to music. Yeah, I've seen that a lot, especially with the younger generation, because obviously English, like there's such a huge influence. You know, like most of the music that we are exposed to is a lot of it's in English. So a lot of Spanish kids or Spanish, like a lot of our students, obviously that they listen to, they've got Spotify on their phone or whatever, and they listen to a lot of music, a lot of English singers. And yeah, I think it has an effect. It does, and they're spending a lot more time on YouTube, and they love Netflix. So just mimicking, I mean, that's one of my tips, which I've always said as well, and maybe you can share this with your audience as well. People are a bit shy. They think that if they copy or they say, I sound ridiculous speaking like that when they're trying to mimic like a native person speaking English. And I'm like, no, that's what you need to do. I mean, that's what children do. They copy the intonation and the accent and the pausing and the rising and falling tone of a language. They copy that, they mimic it. That's how we all learn languages as children. We just copy from what we hear. So that's another thing we can do. Copy what you hear, and through music or through songs is a great way to do it. And even just fixed expressions in movies. A lot of my kids watch English all the time. They watch series or movies in English all the time because that's the rule. It's always in this house. Everything has to be in its original version. But like they'll just bust out, even though they speak Catalan, they'll just bust out lots of like English expressions and stuff because they've heard it on the TV. So yeah, that's definitely some good advice. Anything else before we wrap things up here, Brenden? Have you got any more tips on how to improve your confidence in presenting?
Yeah, I would say the last thing I can leave people with is this question, right? That can help you gain some more confidence. The question to reflect on is the following: how would the world change if you were an exceptional communicator? What people will realize through the reflection of that question, how would the world change if you were a great communicator, is this idea that communication is everything. If you are better at communication, it's not just about presenting to a couple of people in a boardroom. It's about making your entire life better. You'll be able to communicate with people even if you don't understand the language they speak. You'll be able to travel to new places and build relationships with people you'd never normally get to talk to.
Mm.
And by painting that world for yourself, that is the best way to get amazing at communication.
Nice. Yeah, completely agree with you there. Communication is central. It's something that we take for granted. but it's something that can make a huge positive impact on our life. And a lot of the world's problems and a lot of the arguments between people could be solved through better and more effective communication. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And yeah, being a better communicator, being a bit more open, and having it adds to your confidence. And yeah, experiences lead to like actually having experiences leads to wonderful relationships. Or like in my case, I mean, I went to a barbecue in Vancouver at a friend's place, and I met my wife there. So just the fact of getting out there, talking to people, and being a good communicator can change your life. You can meet your next wife or husband or whatever. So yeah, thank you very much, Brenden. Love those tips. I think we've covered some really interesting topics here and some interesting ideas. So where can people connect with you, maybe if they're interested? I mean, do you do online coaching, or are you mainly doing in-person coaching? Maybe you can share your contact details with us and people can connect with you, and if they're interested in learning more about the services that you offer, or if they're interested in checking out your YouTube channel, where can we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to find me is probably MasterTalk, which is the YouTube channel. So that's in one word. You can just type MasterTalk in the search engine, it'll pop up. And if you want to send me a message directly for coaching, or really just questions or comments on how you found the show, the best way of doing that is through Instagram. So my handle there is Master Your Talk. And if you can figure out how to spell my name, you're always happy to connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, so your YouTube, Instagram is at Master Your Talk. Okay, and your YouTube channel is MasterTalk, and we can find you on LinkedIn for Brenden Kumarasamy.
That's what I say. For those of you who really want to connect with me, if you can figure out how to spell my name, I'm happy to connect.
I was trying. Anyway, we can all find you there. So it's mastertalk.ca, so that's the Canadian domain, and MasterTalk over at YouTube, and at Master Your Talk. Well, Brenden, thanks very much for coming on to the Art of Business English. It's been a pleasure. Maybe we'll have to get you on another time as we dive and delve more into presenting. It's one of my favorite topics to teach and deliver talks on. I sometimes, like yourself, do small group coaching programs on that. And it's even becoming more interesting now as people have to adapt to presenting online. So maybe that's something we can look at in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be cool. All right, so everyone, thanks very much for joining us on the Art of Business English again, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you to you, Brenden, for joining us all the way from Montreal, and it's been a pleasure. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Take care. Bye for now.